My aunt always called me the family mistake and tried to embarrass me at the will reading, but she went silent when the judge revealed I was the real heir. Hey, Reddit original post. I 27M. My name is Jacob. And if there's one thing my Aunt Patricia loved more than expensive wine, it was reminding me that I was the family mistake. Not behind closed doors, not in whispers. She'd say it with a smile in front of her friends at family gatherings, even in Christmas cards. I was born when my mother was barely 19, unmarried, and already estranged from most of the family. Aunt Patricia, her older sister, made it her mission to remind everyone that I was an accident they all had to live with. After my mom passed from a sudden brain aneurysm when I was 7, Patricia took me in. Not because she wanted to, but because nobody else did. I remember overhearing her on the phone the day before I moved in, telling someone she'd tolerate the orphan until he turns 18. That was my welcome. Life in her house was survival. Her kids, my cousins Shannon and Robbie, were golden. Anything they wanted, they got. I got hand-me-downs in silence. At school events, they sat in the front row waving signs. For me, Patricia rarely showed up, and when she did, she usually made a scene about how ungrateful I was for all she'd done. But I didn't complain. I kept my head down, studied hard, got a scholarship, and moved out at 18 with a single garbage bag of clothes. I worked through college, slept in my car for a while, and eventually landed a decent job in tech. I wasn't rich, but I was stable and, more importantly, free. Then came Uncle Raymond. He was Patricia's twin brother, though they couldn't have been more different. He was quiet, thoughtful, and never once referred to me as a mistake. When I was young, he'd sneak me books, help me with math homework, and bring me warm meals when Patricia would conveniently forget to feed me. He never said much, but he saw everything. Raymond never married or had kids. He was a corporate attorney and lived in a modest but beautiful countryside home. Over the years, we stayed in touch, emails here, coffee meetups there. When he got sick last year, lung cancer, aggressive and fast, I was one of the few people he let visit regularly. Patricia rarely showed up. She claimed she couldn't bear hospitals, but I think she just assumed she was already in his will and didn't need to pretend. When he passed, I was gutted. Not just from grief, but because I knew I was losing the only real parental figure I'd ever had. 2 weeks later, I received a formal letter. Raymond's will was to be read in person at a law office downtown. Patricia made a dramatic Facebook post about how devastated she was and arrived at the reading in a black designer dress like it was a red carpet event. Shannon and Robbie were there too, practically vibrating with anticipation. I showed up in a plain dress shirt and slacks. No entourage. No expectations. I didn't even know why I'd been invited. The conference room was all oak and leather. The judge overseeing the reading, a gruff man in his 60s, nodded politely and opened the file. I, Raymond Isaac Whitaker, being of sound mind and body, leave the following. To my niece, Shannon, and nephew, Robbie, I leave $5,000 each and a note reminding them to actually return my phone calls once in a while. You could hear Shannon scoff. Robbie looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. To my sister Patricia, she sat up straighter smiling like she was waiting for applause. I leave nothing. You once told me blood was thicker than gratitude and I never forgot that. Her smile froze. The silence in the room was dense. To Jacob Andrew Lane, my sister Helen's son, and the only person who showed me consistent kindness and dignity in my final year. I leave the entirety of my estate including the house, my financial assets, and the cabin in Vermont. He is to inherit everything. Patricia's face went pale. Shannon gasped. Robbie muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." But the judge wasn't done. He held up a sealed envelope. And Mr. Lane, there is a personal letter addressed to you from your uncle. I took it with shaking hands. I don't even remember walking out of the office. I just remember Patricia yelling something behind me. Something about me manipulating an old man about how I didn't deserve a dime. I kept walking. I didn't say a word. Later, in the quiet of my apartment, I opened the letter. It was short. Just a few lines. Jacob, you were never a mistake. You were the only one who saw me for who I was, not what I could give. This is my way of seeing you back. Make a life worth living and maybe, just maybe, make some space in it for love. I cried for the first time in years, not for the money. Not even for the revenge that Patricia had handed me on a silver platter. I cried because for once I didn't feel like a burden. I felt chosen. But if I thought that was the end of it, I was wrong. Patricia wasn't done, and she was going to come for everything she thought was hers. I should have expected the storm that followed, but I underestimated just how far Patricia would go when something didn't go her way. Less than 24 hours after the will reading, my phone lit up with blocked numbers, anonymous voicemails, and a barrage of Facebook tags I never asked for. Patricia had gone full scorched earth. She posted a public rant accusing me of manipulating a sick, dying old man for his estate. She framed it like elder abuse, claimed I'd isolated Raymond, pressured him to cut his real family out of his will, and coerced him into leaving everything to me. The post gained traction fast, thanks to her network of equally fake, equally bored socialite friends. They didn't know me, didn't know Raymond, but they had opinions. I tried to ignore it. Raymond had chosen me for a reason. I didn't need to justify it to anyone, but then she upped the ante. She filed a legal challenge. It was a formal contestation of the will, and she brought in a lawyer known for being both ruthless and theatrical. Her claim that Raymond had been mentally unfit in his final months, and that I had exerted undue influence over him. It was laughable but dangerous. These things could drag on for months, even years, and they could bankrupt you if you weren't careful. I wanted to walk away, just sell the house, cash out what I could, and disappear. But then I remembered that letter. Raymond had trusted me to honor something deeper than his money. He wanted me to build a life. That meant I couldn't back down. So I lawyered up. My attorney, Dana, was a calm, relentless woman who'd worked with Raymond before. She knew him. She believed in the will. This isn't about money, she told me. This is about spite. Patricia never wanted Raymond's affection. She just didn't want anyone else to have it. The legal battle was brutal. Patricia's lawyer dragged every part of my past into the courtroom. My childhood in her home, my college scholarships, my employment history. He painted me as a calculating opportunist who strategically attached himself to Raymond after learning about his wealth. They even tried to bring up a failed relationship from 3 years ago as if that proved I had a manipulative pattern. But Dana was a weapon. She presented Raymond's medical records proving he'd been of sound mind until the last week of his life. She showed email correspondences between Raymond and his financial advisor where he discussed changing his will months before I ever even knew he was sick. Most damning of all, she played a video, a private recording Raymond had made, time-stamped, and notarized. In it, he sat in his reading chair, thinner than I remembered, but alert. He looked into the camera and said, "If anyone is watching this to dispute my will, let me be clear. I have never been manipulated by Jacob. If anything, he is the only person who treated me like more than a bank account. Patricia, if you're seeing this, stop embarrassing yourself." He shattered their case. Patricia's lawyer quietly withdrew the contestation 2 weeks later. I thought that might be the end of it, but people like Patricia don't just admit defeat. They stew in it. The final blow came when Shannon, her golden child, reached out to me. She asked to meet for coffee off the record. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked tired, like the shine of privilege had dulled. "I'm sorry," she said before even sitting down for everything. I didn't say anything. "She's losing it," Shannon continued. "Not just over the will, over control. You were never the problem, Jacob. You were just the one she couldn't break." I wanted to believe it. But trust doesn't come easy after a lifetime of bruises. Then she handed me a manila envelope. She kept this hidden. "It's a letter from your mother. I found it in a locked drawer. It was addressed to you." My hands trembled as I opened it. The paper was yellowed. The handwriting slanted and neat. "Jacob, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more. But I want you to know, whatever they say, you were not a mistake. You were my choice. You were my light. I hope one day someone in this family will treat you the way you deserve. Until then, don't let them define you. Define yourself. Love, Mom." I read it twice. Then a third time, I looked up at Shannon, whose eyes were wet. "Why now?" I asked. She shook her head. "Because I think I'm tired of pretending she didn't ruin all of us." I didn't know if I could forgive Shannon or if she even wanted me to, but I knew something had shifted. Patricia had spent her life crafting a narrative where I was the mistake, the burden, the outsider. But now, even her own children were questioning the script. And Patricia, she wasn't done yet. Because while I thought the courtroom had been the battlefield, the real war was just getting started. I didn't hear from Patricia for almost 2 months. No lawsuit, no emails, not even one of her acidic Facebook tirades. It was unnerving, like the silence after a storm where you wonder if the damage is really over or just waiting to strike again. I spent those weeks trying to adjust to the strange new reality. Raymond's house became my home. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced before. The kitchen window looked out over the hills, the kind of view that slows your heart down. I even visited the cabin in Vermont. It was quiet, a little rundown, but breathtaking. For the first time in years, I started thinking about a future that wasn't built on escape. Then the letter arrived. It wasn't from a lawyer. It wasn't even typed. It was handwritten in Patricia's angular rigid cursive. Just 2 pages. No envelope. Just dropped through the mail slot one morning like a ghost from the past. Jacob, you think you've won something. You think you've taken everything, but you don't understand what you've really inherited. That man you worshipped, he ruined this family long before you were even born. You just don't know it yet. I will not fight you in court again. Let the vultures have the bones. But when your conscience catches up to you, and it will, you'll remember this blood matters. You are still your mother's mistake, and no amount of money will change that. Patricia, there was no signature. No return address. Just venom sealed in ink. I didn't respond. Instead, I folded it up and tucked it into the same drawer where I'd kept my mother's letter. The one Shannon had given me. I'd read that one almost daily. It wasn't just paper. It was proof that love had existed somewhere in this mess, that I wasn't imagining it. But Patricia's words stayed in my head like a bad echo. He ruined this family long before you were even born. Couldn't let that go. So I started digging. I went through Raymond's boxes. The one stored in the attic untouched for years. I found decades of documents. Legal papers, letters, even cassette tapes. One folder in particular stood out. It was labeled Whitaker Family Trust Private. Inside, I found something Patricia never expected me to see. Letters, dozens of them from Raymond to my mother, and responses from her too. Some dated before I was even born. There had been a scandal, a deep one. Turns out, Raymond had once been engaged. A woman named Camille, but the engagement had ended abruptly. Family rumors said she left him for someone else. The truth, Camille had gotten pregnant. Not with Raymond's child, but with another man's. Patricia had found out and blackmailed Camille into leaving town, threatening to ruin her socially if she didn't break it off. She never told Raymond the truth. My mother knew. She tried to tell him in one letter, but Patricia had intercepted it, tore it up, and claimed Helen was losing her mind. There was more. Financial documents showing how Patricia had quietly funneled funds from the family trust to her husband's failing business for years without Raymond's approval. When he confronted her, she cut him off, refused to speak to him for nearly a decade until the cancer diagnosis. That was the truth Patricia was afraid would surface. That's what she meant by you don't know what you've inherited. Not shame, not guilt, power. The power to end her carefully managed reputation. And for the first time in my life, I held something she couldn't take. I didn't expose her right away. I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of it. I just wanted peace. But one night, I called her. She didn't recognize the number, so she picked up. Her voice was cold. "Who is this?" I spoke softly. "The mistake." There was silence. "I know about Camille," I said. "I know about the trust, and I have the letters. If you ever try to come near me again legally, online, or otherwise, I'll make sure your friends, your church, and your grandchildren know exactly what kind of legacy you've built." Another silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You sound just like him." Then she hung up. I don't think she'll ever bother me again. Not because she's afraid of me, but because in her own twisted way, she finally sees me as an equal. And that for Patricia is the ultimate defeat. I've kept the letters, all of them, not as weapons but as reminders that truth always finds a way through the cracks. That I wasn't the family mistake. I was the correction. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.